Welcome, everyone. Thank you for having me. Honor, privilege to be here. Um, the ancient chant, refuge, is what I did just ground myself in. Um, what I believe in and what feels true to me as an anchor. And what feels true is my commitment to taking refuge in community. That's what taking refuge in Sangha means. Um, Kalyanamita, spiritual homies, like this is us. And folk gathering to do this practice, and not something mm, minimal in the sense that a big deal. We could be, it's beautiful it is outside. We could be doing all kinds of other things, and we answer the call to come and take our metaphorical seats, our warrior stances, in the midst of all the things, to cultivate more wisdom and more compassion for the benefit of all beings. I think that is worthy of appreciating ourselves for and acknowledging. Um, and so, refuge in community, refuge in the Dharma. Um, Dharma, better. Dharma is really a couple of different ways with the lowercase t, whatever feels true for you, you'll get to find out for yourself. Try these things on. This feels true for me. It's true for you. Then there's the maybe the more ultimate truths like gravity and things like that. But that's what the Buddha was talking about, the truth of reality as it is. So we can take refuge in that. Uh, and the Buddha. Yeah, we can take refuge in the 2,600-year-old saint that's um, available, which I have some reverence towards, and but we also what feels more aligned and what resonates more for me is kind of taking refuge in what Buddha means and the awakened potential. That we all have Buddha nature. Um, that there's nothing wrong with us. I'll hopefully say that often to remind myself and us that yeah, uh, there's gold inside. So Buddha Dharma Sangha, this is supports yeah what I'm standing on as my ground in a very chaotic, groundless, uncertain world. So for whatever that's worth, and yeah, I would if you're curious about the Dharma, Buddhism, to inquire for yourself your relationship with these things, because I found that there's a book that Kevin Griffin, Buddhist teacher in the Bay Area, he wrote called Dharma God, and so this is what I use when things, the proverbial shit hits the proverbial fan, when there's the subtle to more dramatic challenges, and the practice when things are beautiful and pleasant and pleasurable uh, is to like acknowledge it all as dharma, but also um, I take when I'm sitting in retreat or whatever, when I'm sitting through something, when I say I take refuge in the dharma, that has like a somatic resonance in me, like it does something cellular that supports my well-being and ease. So, um, and yeah, so yeah, Enrique Collazo, he, him. I am 45 years old. I am coming from Oakland and bringing blessings from the ancestors, the original caretakers of that land, the Ohlone people. I bring blessings from my ancestors and my benefactors at home, my child and wife who are holding it down for me. Um, and the hundreds of thousands of young people who have taught me to be in spaces like this, in rooms like this, who, yeah, I'm definitely standing on their shoulders. Um, and I like to imagine, you can bring in your people, your ancestors, your like benefactors, and all the folks that want us to be free and happy. And I imagine them kind of surrounding this space, uh, hand in hand, saying, "I love you. Keep going. You got this. You got this." Um, so, whatever that's worth. um, it's me, yeah. And I'm here in this seat, and there's like this relational thing happening, and I think all of the Dharma is relational. Relational practice is not some new addition to the Dharma. It's relationship to ourself, relationship to each other, to this planet, to it all. Um, so I imagine we're sitting in the circle, that we all have life experience and wisdom. And two things. One, yeah, I'm just another, I'm going to use part of me for my language. This is a fucked up, insecure, neurotic, emotional being. And I won't say another, like that someone else is in this room like that, but out there in general, and me. Um, just the acronym that I learned in the 12 steps around fine. I'm fine too. So if you're fine, you're in the right place. And um, what we're doing is important here, and speaking, listening, and I'm going to say a lot of words. I'm going to do my best to stay present and embodied. And if there's anything that I say that goes against or that doesn't resonate, let it go. Just let it go. You can just let it go. I say a lot of things. And if I say something that goes against your deepest understanding of what is true for you, don't just let it go. Find me some way, somehow, and um, let me know. I want to understand. I want to be in right relationship with folks, and um, whether it's the impact um, is different than my intention. I want to understand the impact. So find me. Let's connect. I want to understand. Uh, so, um, I'll do my part, and I'll ask you to do yours. And you don't necessarily have to interrupt me right in the middle of things. We can kind of wait until the end for that part. But yeah. Anyway. Um, So, welcome to each and every individual in this room, and welcome all the parts of yourself. And you may be used to hearing that if you hang around these parts enough. Maybe you haven't heard it, and so I want to say this. This is not another arena for self judgment. This is not another place where we have to leave parts of ourselves at the door. All the parts of ourselves, the secure, the insecure, the fearful, the courageous, the um, messy, the parts of you that are together, um, Buddhist, atheist, Muslim, Jew, Christian, um, all of the parts of you are welcome in here. Yeah, just even noticing what that's like. To even consider bringing all the parts of yourself in here. And I like to invite imagining ourselves as like cool bouncers. Right? Like I don't know the last time you went to a club, but yeah, remember that being rejected. I do. I got rejected a lot at the club. um, there was always like this. I just constantly watch you, because you would see something in them, but then it would be like, no, 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 not you. But we get to be like, no, all the parts of you. yes, even that part. Even those parts that you've been taught to hide away. Below. Um, so I'll say a little bit of my story, and then we'll get into some meditation and how I ended up here. Um, yeah, born and raised in LA. Don't hold it against me. Moms, bow down to all the single parents out there doing the job of a village. My mom didn't have this. She didn't have a lexicon of language for her emotions. She didn't have parents who celebrated her wholeness, and so um, yeah, my mom learned how to numb out at an early age. So by the time my mom had me, she had my back in many, many ways. And my mom was an alcoholic, and I didn't know what alcoholism was back then. But all I knew is that, my mom worked two jobs. She would come home stressed out, uh, exhausted, and she would start drinking. And when she started drinking, she had zero space for any of my emotions. And I'm a little child, so I have a lot of big emotions. And I learned really early on that in order to keep her calm, I had to pretend that everything was fine. I'm good. I got this. Right? And so she stayed calm, but I was left in this little body with all these big emotions that I didn't know what to do with, right? So I watched her and what she was doing with her friends, and they looked really happy. And I was miserable, and so I wanted to be happy too, so I started doing what they were doing. But anyways, that was my path of numbing out drugs and alcohol, and everything that kind of came with it in my particular culture. So that's like um, getting jumped into a gang, in and out of juvenile hall, fighting, stealing, just all of that stuff. And basically, you could kind of boil it down to really confused. Really confused and afraid, and um, hmm. And I had my own philosophy on happiness, and I thought that happiness meant being or feeling pleasure all the time. And so I went on this pure pleasure pain elimination project, and then by the time I'm 24, uh, yeah, I had an opportunity to uh, pivot. I ended up getting sober, like decades of suicidal ideation and just kind of using to the point where yeah, hope to die, drug addict, they call those, I think. Um, and yeah, I called my mom up one day and was like, I'm ready. And the next chapter began, and that's when I landed in recovery, and that's when the Dharma was introduced to me, Buddha Dharma. Um, and a couple things happened. One, I had already kind of started forming community, something that I had been looking for my whole life. I'd wanted community. And the community that I found my whole life, how do I articulate this? No one actually knew who I was. I encourage you to even reflect on your own life, maybe even as a youngster, because I really thought I only had two options. It was to have friends or to be real. And I chose having friends every time, and I put in air quotes because no one knew who I was, right? So um, I started one way of, the practice that we did this morning was called Finding Our Way Home, and that feels like a place where I started leaving myself, leaving home, alienating myself. Um, and yeah, so community I found my folks, like-minded folks who um, actually were kind of living under the paradigm of seeing clearly how wholeness was the path. Right? That wholeness, freedom, happiness. Yeah. Um, Part of 12 steps that was kind of ingrained in me, and then also within my Buddhist community was service. So be of service. You know, it's not just about you. It's not a belly button gazing practice. It's about, sure, I want to get free, support myself, um, but also I want to help others. And that reminds me of a good quote called Oxygen Mask. Pretend we're on a plane, because in a way we are. And the cabin is losing pressure because sometimes life does that. The oxygen masks drop, and in that moment, you have about 15 seconds of clear consciousness. 15 seconds to choose, to breathe, to remember that, to remember what matters, to reach for what sustains. Because if you don't put your own mask on first, you pass out trying to save someone else. And then no one gets help. So first, take the breath, steady yourself, mask on, and then turn to the one next to you, eyes wide, heart racing, and say, I've got you, because you do. And now maybe both of you can make it home. I really love that. You know, we support ourselves and we put our mask on. I do a lot of traveling, right? Constantly seeing that demonstration, mask first, put your own mask on. And that would be, I think, feels like the core of everything that a part of it at least, of when I'm offering is like remembering to come back to ourselves, remembering that if I want to see change in my wife or in my community or in the world, it starts here. And that's why I don't people I think people don't do it, because coming in here it's so vulnerable and it's so counterintuitive, so radical just to turn inward and pause and be present with what is. You know, I've been taught my whole life to run, to run from this, to turn away. You know. Anyways, I think that could be a good place to do some practice, to start our practice. So, um, yeah, finding a way to position your body that feels good to you. And really just taking a moment to notice if I really gave myself full freaking permission to be as cozy as possible, what would be different? Would I turn my chair towards the window? Would I lie on the floor? Would I put my feet up? Just checking it out. Listening to the body. What do you need, body? And proceeding appropriately. Giving ourselves full permission to arrive, orienting ourselves in time and space. You can do that with your eyes open or closed. Knowing that there is a body, it's in this posture, in this space. Relaxing any places of holding or tension in the body. You've probably been holding it long enough. Maybe relaxing the forehead, brow, tiny micro muscles around the eyes. Relaxing the jaw, tongue. Allowing gravity to do its job, hugging the shoulders down. Relaxing the arms and the hands, noticing where they're resting. Softening around the upper back and chest. Softening the belly. And if we come across any places in the body where there's an intention to soften, but we're realizing the body is just not ready, the invitation is to honor the intelligence of your body. Not a problem. And in your own way, in your own time, just continuing to soften until you get down to your toes. And continuing to work with the experience of gravity, body. Inviting internally spaciousness, allowing everything to settle and move downward. Like the tissue, muscle, organ, and our nervous system. Allowing our nervous system to rejoin planet Earth. It may seem counterintuitive, but the experience can be effortless. It can also be a pleasantness to the downward movement. So for the next 30 seconds or so, just letting all the day, the stress, worry, letting that move down, letting earth, letting the earth take it, helpful. and taking some time to connect with home base, connecting with something that can support our attention, something that's right here, right now. That might be your breath, and riding the wave, noticing the sensation of the breath, checking out experientially what is happening, rising as the lungs pull in air, softening and changing in the temperature, leaving. Kind of happens over and over again, like a wave in the ocean. We can use this as an anchor for sound. Sound in my voice, sound in the soundscape, checking out all the sensations that make up the experience of hearing. It could be a pleasant or neutral place in the body. Maybe the palms of your hand at the bottom of your feet. Feeling them from the inside out. And if you're unfamiliar about what brings most support, if that's change, you can experiment. And if you know, I invite you for the next few minutes to just rest and hang out with the anchor. When the mind wanders, no big deal. It's a moment of awakening. No need to hammer ourselves for waking up. It's actually the point of the game. And then there's a choice point to return. And we'll do that together for a few minutes in silence. and noticing what's happening in this moment. My mind is so trained to judge and track the negative. I like to invite myself to notice what doesn't suck. I invite you to notice what doesn't suck. Yeah, it's accessible. Noticing the pleasant. And as we notice what doesn't suck and feels pleasant, and track and notice what happens when that experience starts to change, because it will. Buddha knew this and invited us to relate to what feels good with non-attached appreciation. I think Buddhists get a bad rap for not being able to feel pleasure, avoiding pleasure. That's not it. I think we're being invited to enjoy pleasure, soak up every moment of it with every fiber of your being, and let it go when it's ready to go. For it's less slow burn, less suffering. The mind is like, I'm trying to find things that don't sit, but right now I'm just like, my attention is getting pulled to the unpleasant. Great. Name it unpleasant, not a problem. And can I meet this unpleasant condition, sensation, experience with care? So much fighting happening out there. Right. The internal battle. Put the hammer down just for a moment. It's something I found in my own experience when it comes to tracking pleasant sensations. Noticing the neutrality. Mm, Neutral, I think, is inherently there's an absence of pain. That can be pleasant in of itself to look at. So for the next few minutes, just noticing, being the witness to how we react to the things that feel good, the things that don't, things that bore. We have the capacity when we notice ourselves clinging to something that feels good, seeing if we can soften. We notice that we're hammering yourself, falling short of some unrealistic expectations, seeing if you can meet yourself with care. Our conditioned, dysfunctional relationship to pain, and its extreme, that's what they call addiction. And so we get to find freedom one breath at a time in our warrior stance. Remembering the still factor in you. allowing it all to exist. Peace, grace, rest, peace. And of course, we don't go from hating pain to loving pain. It's a process, stepping stone. Maybe the first step might be, can I tolerate this itch for one more breath? For as much heart as I can in this moment, I'm going to say yes to this moment. Noticing what aversion feels like in the body. Noticing what letting go feels like in the body. Softening, relaxing into forcing a manipulative way. Sometimes I like to drop in, I can be with it, be with it. So just take it easy on us. Your only duty, Mark Coleman, right, is to try and not run from fear, from this, even if the whole of loss burns deep into your soft belly, even if upon awakening you feel the dread of walking through the day stripped bare, and it feels like the wind will pierce those places that lay open unexposed. At times in this life you don't have a choice but to pick up where you left off, to make a cup of tea, to sit quietly in the garden of your creation and take in the day, turn towards exactly where you are. We could always pretend, try putting on a face other than our own, or try avoiding the whole thing. But that's a game that never works and only burns a deeper hole inside the pocket of longing and makes the shell I have chosen to live in even more empty. But when I surrender to embrace my loneliness and the starved parts of my being, and I touch the void that I have spent a lifetime running from with delicate hands of love, the way the evening fog envelops the solitary tree without flinching, pressing into and loving every snarled crevice, every twisted thread, even the forgotten needle falling to the ground. But this is the first step that begins this slow journey of completeness. It keeps inviting you deeper and deeper and deeper to the roots of yourself, claiming a place that has always been waiting, that is always up here. Thank you for your practice. Steady. Mm.
We'll take a few minutes break, but before we do, I just want to mention, because some of you are new here, and this is a small Sangha, and it keeps growing. Week after week, more people are finding their way here. Some come stressed out, some come grieving, some need a quiet place to breathe. And it's been really nice to witness how this little community, how we hold each other, not unlike the way a forest holds everything that falls into it very gently and without judgment. And to continue offering this refuge, we're hoping to expand some of our practices. Over time, we'd like to have a bigger room. We'd like to be able to pay our core teachers, and we'd like to keep giving Dana to our visiting teachers. And if this has supported you at all, or if it's helped you steady your mind or soften your heart, we invite you, only if it feels right, to contribute to our Sangha building. And really, no amount is too small. Every offering, even the cost of a cup of tea, helps us grow in a way that's sustainable and rooted in kindness. And through the centuries, the priceless and freely given gift of the Dhamma has been offered by monks and nuns and lay teachers. And the practice of dana, generosity through voluntary gifts of support, has been offered by those who felt they benefited by the Dhamma. Without this interdependence of mutual support, these precious teachings wouldn't have survived. And so we feel honored to continue the carrying the torch, the flame in the heart of the teachings, and are very grateful for sharing your joy in giving and ours in receiving. So thank you for your generosity in being here, and may you directly realize joy from the practice. We have a little box over there that's the Dana box on the table, and you can put cash in there if you want to. There's also QR codes for Zelle or Venmo. And if you would like to consider being a monthly donor, sometimes Zelle is a good way to do it because it's taken right out of the bank account. But don't worry, if contributing financially isn't possible right now, please know that your presence here is already a gift. And we can always use volunteers. Thank you for the volunteers that helped me today and that devotedly help us each week. And we have other places that could use some volunteering if anybody wants to do some tech things or some newsletter things or anyway, I won't go into all those details, but if you're interested in volunteering for anything, just talk to me. And there's also a sign up sheet if anybody didn't sign it and you'd like to get our weekly newsletter. That's the place to sign up so that you'll get it hopefully in a timely manner. And if you sign it, you'll get that, or you can also go to the website and join there. And we also have a YouTube page. So it's Pacific Northwest Meditation, not too hard to find. And you can see old talks there, which are also, a few of them are also listed on the website, just like the last 4 or something. And next week, Venerable Tejasi, who was here last week, our current monk in residence, who grew up in Portland and then went off to become a monk 10 years ago and has come back to the area. And he'll be in Portland until June. So he's coming, I think, 3 more times, counting next week. And then he'll be back again in November. And he's a person who really embraces heartfelt teaching. And so, and he and Trina Trong will be hosting next week. And then I'll be teaching on the week after that, on the 11th. So that gives you a little bit of a head start of the future. So the future being not with us yet. Let's stand up, stretch a little bit, maybe get a drink. We'll make it short. We'll just make it 5 minutes. All right. Thank you.
Ready? So, anything come up so far? Any questions about the instructions or anything that I mentioned in the pre-talk that you feel like speaking to in this moment?
Yeah, I just was reminded during your instruction on meditation of a metaphor that the Buddha used to a certain follower of his who was a musician, and he said that about when you're sitting and trying to focus, that you don't want to try too hard, but you don't want to be, just laying there lackadaisically on the ground either. And he compared it to like a stringed instrument that if it's too sharp and you're trying too hard, that you will not get the result that you want. It won't sound good. And if it is too loose, it will just flop around and make a horrible noise and nobody will enjoy it. So you try, but do not try too hard.
Mm. That middle path.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Mhm.
Jordan, him, and what came this may be specific to me, but maybe interesting too. In the last meditation, I found I was having a hard time with the like sitting with looking the pain directly in the face and all that, and um, it is something I can do, but recently I've been having a lot of anxiety, and so I sort of noticed for myself like when it was like, oh, can you breathe with it for a few more breaths? And I did that, and I was like, that was too far.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I decided for the rest of the meditation that I was not going to do that, and not necessarily avoid it, but like just let my attention really go to pleasant things. And then when unpleasant things arose, not like run away from them, but like not try to increase my capacity to be with them right now, because that felt more skillful for this moment in time, just sort of like filling up my cup of, of pleasantness. Uh, and yeah, I was just wondering if you could speak to that at all.
Good job. Seriously, I mean, right, that moment where maybe you leaned in and it was too much, um, that can be like a moment for like care, right? It's like, oh, my intention wasn't to disrupt anything. I wanted to support myself and it disrupted some things. So, oh, okay. So, like, can I hug that, or can I be with that to, continue to move towards the pleasant? I think it's beautifully described. Listening and taking care of yourself and seeing clearly. I appreciate and this might be just for you, but the discernment around this moment, right? Not generalizing, but in this moment, this was the experience, and it could be different in another. I feel useful. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. I just wanted to quickly ask you, uh, in the early days, was there any particular person who turned your head around?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Like shifted my perception.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because usually there's something going on within you that is open to that.
Mm-hmm.
But then, just the right words sometimes can also, come together. They kind of collide. Yeah.
There's a lot of that in the Pali Canon too, those moments where the perfect word and this the enlightenment
Yes.
happens, right? It's maybe as you're trying
Yes.
to open the jar or whatever, but
Yeah.
I think what comes up for me is storytelling in general. Like I remember I came into the path of healing or Dharma, the 12-step Dharma, but it was
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
um, and I learned early on that um, yeah, when I started listening to stories, something happened.
Mhm.
I was like, this isn't an adage in the book, but it felt true. It's just like, oh, you felt that way?
Mhm. Mhm.
You've experienced these things that I've experienced? Maybe I've been thinking I'm the only one experiencing these things.
Mhm.
Maybe I think that because of these things I'm experiencing, there's this is just the way it is, and then I see you and I hear you, and I believe that you've also been at the edge of hell and you've made it out. Like
Mhm.
that was that
Yeah.
kind of those were
The
some of the things of like,
universality.
yeah,
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
too. This is available to me too. This
Yeah.
big moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And then I continue to come back to the heavy hitters, and those are heavy hitters of like passion and kindness,
Mhm.
the Malalas and the Martin Luther King
Mhm.
Juniors and the
Mhm.
Mother
Yeah.
Teresa's and
Mhm.
Gandhi's.
Yeah. 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 That's beautiful. Thank you. Mhm.
There you go. Hmm. Move on, and again, you can interrupt and raise your hand if you have any questions or wanting further clarity around it.
I do have a question just sort of about recovery Dharma generally, or Dharma. Is there like, there's different schools of Buddhism. Is recovery Dharma, is it sort of more on the secular side, or is it rooted in any one school, or is it more, general, I guess? I went to one recovery Dharma meeting, but I am not super familiar with how it started and where its roots are and things like that.
Thank you. So you are talking about a specific group. I don't know. If I was gonna answer, yeah, I don't know much about that. I have some sense that they're kind of using Buddhism and maybe like Buddhist literature, and if Buddhist pointing to freedom from addiction, basically in the suttas, right? So they're just applying it to their addiction, I think.
Hello.
Hi.
A few months ago, I said to somebody in the apartment building where I live, I said, I feel drawn to both Christianity and maybe more of an alternative sense in some people, and um, the Buddhism. Well, I didn't say Buddhism practice, but it is more that for me. And she said, well, um, you don't really have to choose because Buddhism is a lifestyle and not a faith. And I went, really? So I'm just wondering what you might say to that.
Mm, good one. I agree that you don't have to, that one doesn't need to let go of their faith, their creed, their particular maybe core practice, that the Dharma can marry with, that's my view. I don't know if it's a view that everyone might have, an orthodox view, but um, faith is definitely a part of Buddhist practice. It's different than the maybe Judeo-Christian um, view around faith. This is more of like, I think it's even in the Pali Canon that where it comes up, but around like verified faith, direct experience, and like I was doing with 12-step folks who had come before me, trust in them, right? And there was a faith that they were receiving the fruit of the actions that they said that they were taking. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that's somewhere in suttas around, like, uh, yeah, the faith is important, key part. Now, Buddhism doesn't necessarily have a theism. That's why I think it can live within other structures. But that's my own, right? Because if they say it's a monotheistic practice, it ties perfect. It's like mm, yeah, monotheism. He acknowledges that there's gods and deities and out there, but he continues to point us back here. Um, and I think that's such a great addition to, like, maybe these other traditions are doing that as well, but I don't know that. But to add something to this beautiful theistic faith, a reminder to come home and turn inward and trust in here too.
And yet it has a fundamentalist base, which is not part of my thing. So I've gotten a little confused because he really does go to a very loving church, and it really did make a difference in my life because of the joy and love that's there. So it's, yeah. But then I finally I finally saw that it couldn't be a full blown community because it had a fundamentalist base, and to join one of the pods, I would have had to say that I would ultimately be answering to the elders in the church. And I thought, no. I need to answer to myself, So, anyway, I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place sometimes. But it doesn't do anything a lot different than what I've experienced most of my life, and that's partly why I'm here. I'm a little bit not in any box. I find it kind of funny.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I would just say that, it's 2026, just like with relationships, we get to create any kind of relationship style. I think we get to do that with our spiritual practice too. And not, and I hear that the community is an important piece. And so I don't want to minimize that, but I'm excited for you to the trajectory of your beautiful spiritual practice, that you bring in all the things that feel good and pleasant to you and work with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Kendall, do you mind reminding me the time that I'm ending? This is time. All right. Yep. Perfect. So I'll read a couple things. I'll say a few more words, and we can see what happens. This is Alice Walker's. It was the worst of times. It was the best of times. Try as I might, I cannot find a more appropriate opening for this volume. It helps tremendously that these words have been spoken before, and thanks to Charles Dickens' writing, written at the beginning of A Tale of Two Cities. Perhaps they have been spoken, written, thought, an endless number throughout human history. It is the worst of times because it feels as though the very earth is being stolen by us, from us, by us. The land, the air poisoned, the water polluted, the animals disappeared, humans degraded and misguided. War is everywhere. It is the best of times because we have entered a period, if we can bring ourselves to pay attention, of great clarity as to cause and effect. A blessing when we consider how much suffering human beings have endured in previous millennia without a clue to its cause. Gods and goddesses were no doubt created to fill this gap because we can now see into every crevice of the globe, and because we are free to explore previously unexplored crevices in our own hearts and minds, it is inevitable that everything we have needed to comprehend in order to survive, everything we have needed to understand in the most basic ways will be illuminated now. We have only to open our eyes and awaken to our predicament. We see that we are, alas, a huge part of our problem. However, we live in a time of global enlightenment. This alone should make us shout. So 10,000 joys, 10,000 sorrows, that's what the Buddha pointed out. And I know I imagine my own experience, you can feel out of balance. When I pay attention and I continue to come back home and I continue to train myself out of the constantly tracking what's wrong. One, not only is it biological, but if you grew up with someone that's constantly telling you you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong, I'm gonna have a lot of, no wonder I'm 45 years old and have so much self-doubt still, So um, we come back and we train as though our life depended on it, because it does. I love that um, definition by John Kabat-Zinn. And like one of the ways when he describes mindfulness is like paying attention to the present moment on purpose as though your life depended on it, and our lives do. And the only thing that's actually ever happening in any given moment is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. So I'm at the airport. Chaos. Hearing. Seeing is happening. And then my judging mind comes back. Seeing is happening. Hearing is happening. That's it. So I come back to these reminders. That's what these things are. It's like mindfulness, remembering. And so I find my way into these spaces, probably because of the title of this talk, which I haven't really gotten to yet, but our sensitivity, that something has happened. We're all sensitive, vulnerable beings, even if we don't want to be. Like we have this intense world, and the only thing that's protecting my heart from this intense world is a thin layer of cartilage and some skin. We're vulnerable inherently, and we're sensitive beings. And if you're anything like me, you were taught away from being sensitive. I don't think it matters which body you were born in. I think culturally we've all been taught to be hard, be hardened, to be tough. We put on this image of tough, and I've got this, and I'm fine, and we suffer as a result of it. Depression, to depress is to push down. So trusting in our sensitivity, letting it be our superpower. There's a story, I mentioned this earlier, but Octavia Butler wrote a parable of the sower. How do you pronounce that? Sower. I'm gonna say sower. We're gonna go with sower. And there's a character in that book. Her name is Lauren Nina. Basically, she has this kind of hyper empathy, but not in like it's not. And it's a fantasy. I don't know. It's not. It's not real. But she has this hyper empathy that anything, anything that's felt by anyone else around her, she feels, whether it's a prick, a splinter, or death, or an orgasm, or the joy of smelling something good. Like she feels that, and I can just imagine just thinking about holding so much, and just even being overwhelmed by that. But that feels like a goal for me, is to be that sensitive. Because when I'm that sensitive, when she was that sensitive, she was very aware of her actions and how, yeah, like, um, treaded lightly around causing harm. Because hurting you means hurting myself. And when it comes to the bigger picture, right? Imagine the things that most of us are going through when we turn on the television or the social media, or telenovela that's happening out in our world that has real freaking consequences. That Yeah, there's lots of experiences. Maybe we want to numb, maybe we want to fight, maybe we want to hide, like all the things that can happen. And I just, my employment to myself um, is to uh, have an undefended heart, and to do whatever I can to align my value of freedom through love, which means that I believe that everyone deserves the resources and to have access to all the things that they need. And that's everybody, even my enemies. And we don't have to like people, but I need to love them. That's my practice. I think that's what the Dharma is pointing to. And so this continues to come right back to ourselves. It's like, okay, can I forgive myself? Can I have compassion for the parts of myself that hurt? Can I have so much empathy and understanding for being in a body that is wired to struggle? Um, can I radically accept my wholeness and let go of any perfection project and any idea that it's anything other than myself, my whole self? Um, and then we track where we're at, where we're starting, and we buckle in and we keep going. And now this is, the important thing is, it's like if you asked me where the beach was, and I'm like, just go west, and then you start going west, and all of a sudden there's a mountain in front of you, or a valley, or traffic, or, then you're gonna. And I didn't tell you that that's what was on the way. You might think that there's something wrong, that you're lost, that you're going the wrong way. Don't forget about the peaks and the valleys, y'all. That is a part of it. Um, and I know how easy it can be to just really cling to those peaks, and feel like this is where it's at, and I need it to stay here. How often do we do that? It's like, things are good, and I start stressing about when the shoe's gonna drop, or whatever saying is. But when I acknowledge that it's gonna drop, there's gonna be a change. And can I stay ready so I don't have to get ready? And so Dharma's got so many lists. One of them is the remembrances. Helps me stay ready. I am of the nature to get sick. No, nothing wrong. Every time I'm sick, there's something wrong. So I did something wrong. I didn't take care of myself well enough this time, right? Nothing wrong. I'm of the nature to get sick. That's what it means to be human. I'm of the nature to get old. Yeah. I'm of the nature to die. I was just having a moment of my own kind of aging stuff. I'm of the nature to die. Something that we don't talk about a lot in this culture, not in this smaller culture, because in Buddhism there's clear pointing to our, I think, the better relationship we have with our impermanence and death, the better relationship we have with life. Of everything that I love, everything that is dear to me is subject to change. And so the only ground that I have to walk on is my ethics. That's it. So remember, tomorrow's not guaranteed. And that reminder is not to be a bummer or morbid or depressing. It is a reminder for us to be as sensitive as we want. It's a reminder to fire under us to push us out, to connect with the people around us, maybe in a much more meaningful way. I don't know how many times y'all have felt this, but I'll tell them I love them when I see them the next time. I'll appreciate them. They already know that I love them already. Whatever. It's like all the things that we might be waiting for. Why are we waiting? Like if we knew we only had a little bit of time left. You know? I mean, we've heard this maybe around here, but who would we connect with? What would we say? And why are we waiting? You know? If there's a quote for the quote, I can read this before the end. All right. Here we go. Buddhism advises you to not advises you not to implant feelings that you don't really have, or avoid feelings that you do have. If you're miserable, you're miserable. That is reality. That is what is happening. So confront that. Don't believe me for this, but look it square in the eye without flinching. When you are having a bad time, examine that experience. Observe it mindfully. Study the phenomena and learn its mechanics. This is my favorite part. The way out of the trap is to study the trap itself. If I've locked myself up in this prison, the good news is that I have the key. It means I can unlock it as well. So you do this by taking the thing apart, piece by piece. The trap can't trap you if it has been taken to pieces. The result is freedom. Thank you for your kind attention and being with the sporadic nature of Enrique's Dharma Talks. And here to, yeah, if anything else wants to be said by anybody.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, no, it just a couple thoughts came to my mind as you were speaking. Um, that and it's always difficult to say this, to others, and I really don't, just to people who I practice with. But there's no security to be found outside of ourselves. And that's often what we're seeking. And that skillful means it differs from moment to moment. And that's a very beautiful thing in itself, because the more you go within and really practice, the more comfortable you become with knowing that every situation is going to require something very different from me. And it's kind of lovely because it frees you. Yeah. So. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
On the same note, before the Buddha passed over into Nibbana, the Parinibbana, his close attendant Ananda came to him and was grieving. You know, he was very sad that the Buddha's physical form was passing away, and the Buddha told him, he was saying, "No, my teacher is gone. You know, I haven't learned everything yet, and I'm gonna miss you," and things like that. You know, like anybody who you care about somebody and they're going to pass away. And the Buddha told him that to take refuge in himself, basically. He said, the Dhamma, the teachings are all in you, and your only refuge in this world is truly yourself. And that is something, that I think on this note is important to remember.
Thank you. Together alone.
Chance if anybody wants to say anything. Thank you so much for being here.
You can do the dedication in there.
That would be wonderful.
So if you're not unfamiliar, tradition in these parts to kind of take what's generated, any goodness, any from us kind of coming together in this way, take it in, own it, feel it, and offer it out. So just taking a moment to land back in the body, kind of reflecting on any goodness, many opportunities to practice patience, cultivate compassion, equanimity, connection, feeling of belonging, moments of ease, moments of noticing the presence. And so many goodness that has come from our practice be dedicated to the benefit of all beings. In particular, we dedicate this merit to the places of suffering within ourselves and the world, those suffering under violence, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ageism, ableism, and all the intersecting oppression. We commit to doing the work within ourselves and in the world of uprooting greed, hatred, and delusion so that our true heart's wish would come true, that all beings everywhere be free from suffering and pain. May all beings abide in the ease of well-being. May all beings be safe inside and out. May all beings know connection, love, joy, and peace. May all beings be truly free. Thank you again for your kind attention, your presence. We'll be wrapping it up, but I'll be around if anyone has any questions or anything. I needed something to land right, then they can find me, okay?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.